The great assembly hall of Kepler Station was the biggest room Morrison had ever seen. The ceiling stretched up so high it disappeared into darkness, and the walls curved away in both directions until they met somewhere he could not see. Thousands of aliens filled the space, their voices creating a sound like ocean waves mixed with wind chimes and distant thunder. Morrison and Carter sat in the section marked for developing species, along with delegates from a dozen other worlds. Most of their neighbors looked as uncomfortable as the humans felt. There was a group of furry creatures with 6 arms who kept dropping their translation devices, and some tall, thin beings who seemed to be melting and reforming every few minutes. In the center sections sat the real powers of the galaxy. The Zephyrians sparkled like living jewels, their crystal bodies catching and bending the light in ways that hurt to look at directly. The Nephilim floated in tanks of glowing gas, their forms shifting like smoke in the wind. The Helix Collective sent perfect robot bodies that moved with mechanical precision, their metal faces showing no expression at all. A chime rang through the hall, and all conversation stopped. A figure rose from the central platform, tall and graceful, with skin that shifted between silver and gold. When it spoke, its voice filled the entire hall without seeming loud. "Welcome, beings of the galaxy, to this gathering of civilized worlds," the figure said. "I am Coordinator Prime, and I speak for the Galactic Council. Today we welcome new species to our community, and we celebrate the bonds that unite all thinking beings." Applause filled the hall, a sound like rainfall on metal mixed with musical tones Morrison had never heard before. When it died down, Coordinator Prime continued. "We have representatives today from many worlds. Some come to us with great achievements in science and technology. Others come with art and culture that enriches us all. And some," the figure's gaze seemed to find the developing species section, "come to us in the early stages of their growth, seeking guidance and wisdom from their elder civilizations." Morrison felt his face get hot. The message was clear. Humanity was being treated like children who had wandered into an adult meeting. Coordinator Prime gestured to the Zephyrian section. "Commander Veltar of the Crystal Fleet will now address the Assembly." A Zephyrian rose, its body flashing with inner light. When it spoke, its voice was like a song played on glass instruments. "Fellow beings, the Zephyrian Empire celebrates another year of peace and progress. Our living ships have explored 30 new star systems. Our consciousness transfer technology has eliminated death from old age, and our harmony crystals now connect 14 billion minds across the galaxy." The applause was much louder this time. Morrison noticed that the developing species section clapped politely, but the advanced civilizations created sounds of approval that seemed to come from the air itself. Next came Ambassador Thys of the Nephilim. The gas being's tank floated to the center of the platform, and when it spoke, its voice was like wind through a canyon. "The Nephilim Council has achieved new breakthroughs in dimensional folding. We can now transport entire planets through hyperspace. Our weather control systems have brought rain to 17 desert worlds, and our energy-to-matter converters have ended hunger on 53 colonies." More impressive applause. Morrison was starting to understand the pattern. Each advanced species would list achievements that sounded like magic compared to what humanity had accomplished. Unit 9947 of the Helix Collective was next. The robot moved to the platform with perfect mechanical steps, and its voice was flat and emotionless. "The Helix Collective reports successful integration of consciousness with quantum computers. Death is now optional for all collective members. Our self-repairing ships can survive supernova explosions. Our matter compilation systems can build anything that can be imagined. The pattern continued for an hour. The Archean delegates spoke of technologies that could restart dead stars. The Void Swimmers described ships that could travel through black holes. The Time Weavers mentioned experiments that could slow down entire star systems. Finally, Coordinator Prime called for new species to present themselves. Morrison felt his heart pounding as he stood up. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Liberty," he said, his voice sounding small in the vast hall. "I represent the human species of the planet Earth. We come seeking friendship and trade with the civilized worlds of the galaxy." He paused, waiting for the polite applause that had greeted the other new species. Instead, he heard whispers and what sounded very much like snickering. "Captain Morrison," said Commander Veltar, its crystal form pulsing with light, "please tell us of your species' achievements. What marvels of science and technology do humans bring to our community?" Morrison swallowed hard. "We have developed fusion power for our ships. We have mapped our entire solar system. We have built computers that can calculate faster than any human mind. We have cured most diseases, and we have learned to grow food in space." The silence that followed was somehow worse than laughter would have been. Morrison could feel thousands of alien eyes on him, and none of them looked impressed. Unit 98947's head turned toward Morrison with a mechanical whir. "Captain Morrison, you mentioned fusion power as an achievement. The Helix Collective abandoned fusion technology 47,000 years ago when we discovered zero-point energy extraction. Your fastest ships travel at what velocity?" "About half the speed of light," Morrison replied. "The Collective's slowest maintenance drones travel at 20 times the speed of light," Unit 9947 stated. "Your computers calculate at what rate?" Carter leaned forward. "Our quantum computers can perform about 10 to the 18th operations per second." "Primitive," Unit 9947 said without any emotion. "The Collective's basic thinking units process 10 to the 35th operations per second. Based on your technology index, humans rate a 2.3 on the Kardashev scale. The Collective recommends monitoring status rather than full membership." Ambassador Theis's tank drifted closer. "Captain Morrison, how many star systems has your species colonized?" "None yet," Morrison admitted. "Earth is our only world." "How many other intelligent species have you encountered?" "You are the first." "How many wars has your species fought?" Morrison hesitated. "Many. Too many." The whispers grew louder. Morrison heard words in alien languages, but the translation devices made their meaning clear. Violent. Primitive. Dangerous. Unready. Coordinator Prime raised a hand for silence. "Captain Morrison, the Galactic Council appreciates your species' desire to join our community. However, membership requires certain standards of technological and social development. Perhaps in a few thousand years, when humanity has matured, we request observer status," Carter interrupted, standing up beside Morrison. "We know we have much to learn. We only ask for the chance to prove ourselves." The council members looked at each other. Morrison could not read their expressions, but he sensed they were having some kind of silent conversation. Finally, Coordinator Prime spoke. "Very well. Humanity is granted provisional observer status. You may dock at Kepler Station for 72 hours. You may observe our proceedings and learn from our civilizations. but you may not vote on council matters and you may not establish permanent facilities until you meet our minimum requirements." Morrison felt relieved and insulted at the same time. They were being treated like students allowed to sit in on a university class they were not smart enough to take. As the formal session ended and aliens began to leave, Morrison noticed something odd. Several groups were staying behind, talking, quietly among themselves and looking toward the human section. Their expressions were not mocking anymore. They looked curious, almost suspicious. Carter noticed it too. "Jake," she whispered, "why are they staring at us like that?" Morrison did not know, but something in their looks made him nervous. It was the way people looked when they had seen something that did not make sense, something that worried them. As they left the assembly hall, Morrison heard one more whisper from an alien he could not see. The words sent a chill down his spine. "Their ship," the voice said. "Did you scan their ship? The readings make no sense at all." The Kepler station floated in the black void like a giant metal flower with its arms spread wide. Ships from across the galaxy moved around it like bright insects, each one more amazing than the last. The station was huge, bigger than Earth's moon, and it sparkled with lights from 1,000 different worlds. Captain Jake Morrison looked out through the small window of his ship and felt his stomach twist. The UES Liberty was shaking as they got closer to the station. The engines were making that grinding sound again, the one that made everyone on the crew nervous. Behind him, Dr. Lisa Carter was checking her tablet for the 100th time. "Are you sure about this, Jake?" she asked quietly. "Look at those ships out there." Morrison looked where she pointed. A crystal ship that looked like it was made of pure diamond was sliding past them without making any sound at all. Its surface was glowing with soft blue light, and it moved like it was swimming through water instead of empty space. Next to it, a ship that looked like it was made of flowing metal was changing its shape as it flew, growing longer and thinner as it picked up speed. "We belong here just as much as they do," Morrison said, but his voice sounded less sure than his words. The Liberty groaned as they got closer to the docking bay. Morrison could see alien faces pressed against the windows of other ships, watching them. Some of the faces had too many eyes. Others had no eyes at all, just glowing spots where eyes should be. All of them seemed to be laughing. The radio crackled to life. A voice spoke in perfect English, but it sounded like wind blowing through broken glass. "Human vessel, you are cleared for docking bay 97. Please follow the guidance lights. Try not to crash into anything." The last part sounded like a joke, but Morrison was not sure if it was meant to be funny or mean. He grabbed the controls and tried to guide the Liberty toward the flashing lights. The ship lurched to the left, then swung back to the right. Behind him, he heard something fall over in the cargo bay. "Smooth as always, Captain," Carter said with a weak smile. Through the radio, they could hear other voices talking. The alien languages sounded like music, like breaking glass, like machines talking to each other. But underneath it all, Morrison could hear something that sounded very much like laughter. "Look at them struggle with basic flight control," said a voice that sounded like singing crystals. "Do they still burn chemicals to move their ship?" "Chemicals," another voice replied. This one like the sound of gas escaping from a balloon. "How wonderfully primitive. Next they will tell us they still use wheels to move on land." More laughter filled the radio. Morrison's face turned red, but he kept his hands steady on the controls. The Liberty bumped against the docking platform. Once, twice, then finally settled into place with a loud clang that echoed through the ship. "Welcome to Kepler Station," the wind-glass voice said. "Please remain in your ship until our scanners have checked you for dangerous materials." This may take some time, given your technology level. Morrison turned off the radio and sat back in his chair. Through the window, he could see aliens gathering on the platform outside. They were pointing at the Liberty and making gestures that looked very much like the ones humans made when they saw something funny. Carter moved to stand beside him. Jake, maybe we should have waited. Maybe we should have built better ships first. No, Morrison said firmly. Humanity has been dreaming of this day for hundreds of years. We are not going to wait just because our ship does not look as pretty as theirs. But even as he said it, Morrison could not help feeling small. The Liberty had been the pride of Earth when it launched 6 months ago. It was the fastest ship humans had ever built, the strongest, the most advanced. The fusion engines could push them to nearly half the speed of light. The hull was made of the toughest steel Earth's factories could produce. The computers could calculate flight paths that would have taken human mathematicians years to figure out. But here, next to these alien ships that seemed to bend space around them and move without any engines at all, the Liberty looked like an old truck next to a fleet of sports cars. "Scanning complete," the voice announced. "You may leave your ship. Please follow the blue lights to the processing center. Do not touch anything that glows. Do not stare directly at the Zephyrian representatives. Do not attempt to communicate with the Helix units unless they speak to you first." Morrison and Carter looked at each other. "Well," Carter said, "this should be interesting." They made their way to the airlock. The rest of the crew was all ready. Gathered there, 40 men and women who had volunteered to be the first humans to meet alien life. They all looked nervous, but they also looked excited. Morrison felt proud of them. "Remember," he told them, "we represent all of humanity today. We may not have the fanciest ship, but we have something they do not have. We have the human spirit." The airlock opened, and they stepped out onto the platform. The air smelled like ozone and flowers and something else Morrison could not identify. The gravity felt a little lighter than Earth normal, making each step feel like a small bounce. Aliens were everywhere. Some walked on 2 legs like humans, but with skin that changed colors as they moved. Others floated in the air inside bubbles of water. A few rolled along the ground like living boulders, leaving trails of sparks behind them. And all of them were staring at the humans. "Look at their skin," one alien whispered to another. "It does not even glow." "And their eyes," said a third. "Only 2 of them, and they point the same direction." "How do they see behind themselves?" asked a fourth. Morrison tried to ignore the comments as they followed the blue lights down a long corridor. The walls were covered with pictures that moved and changed as they watched. Some showed star maps with thousands of worlds marked in different colors. Others showed battles between fleets of ships that looked like they were made of pure light. At the end of the corridor was a huge room with a ceiling so high Morrison could not see the top. Hundreds of aliens filled the space, sitting in sections marked by different symbols. The humans were led to a small area near the back, with a sign that said, "Developing Species," in several languages. As they took their seats, Morrison heard more whispers and comments from the aliens around them. They still use radio waves to communicate. "Look at their clothes. Woven fibers. How quaint. I heard their fastest ships cannot even break the light barrier." "Really? How do they travel between stars?" "Very slowly, I imagine." The laughter that followed was not mean, exactly, but it was not kind either. It was the kind of laughter adults make when children try to do grown-up things. Morrison sat up straighter in his chair. Carter reached over and squeezed his hand. "Let them laugh," she whispered. "We will show them what humans can do." Morrison nodded, but inside he wondered if they had made a terrible mistake coming here. The Liberty was the best humanity could build, but compared to these ships that could travel faster than light and reshape themselves at will, it looked like a toy. Still, they were here now, and whatever happened next, they would face it as humans. Always had. Together, with courage, and with the refusal to give up no matter how impossible things seemed. Morrison was eating breakfast in the Liberty's small mess hall when the call came. The food was the same nutritional paste they had been eating for 6 months, but somehow it tasted worse than usual. Maybe it was the stress of being surrounded by beings who thought humans were barely smarter than animals. "Captain Morrison to the bridge," Carter's voice crackled over the intercom. "You need to hear this." Morrison found Carter staring at the communication panel with a confused expression. "What is it?" he asked. "Message from Coordinator Prime. We have been summoned to an emergency session of the Galactic Council. Mandatory attendance. Maximum. Priority." Morrison felt his stomach drop. "Do they say why?" "No." "But Jake?" Carter pointed to another screen showing the space around the station. "Look at this." Morrison looked and felt his mouth go dry. Dozens of warships had appeared around. Kepler Station overnight. Massive Zephyrian crystal dreadnoughts hung in space like frozen lightning. Nephilim battle spheres pulsed with contained energy storms. Helix collective war machines bristled with weapons that could crack planets. Why would they bring warships to a diplomatic station? Morrison asked. "I think," Carter said quietly, "they brought them for us." An hour later, Morrison and Carter walked through corridors that felt very different from the day before. Instead of curious stares and quiet laughter, the aliens they passed looked at them with expressions that ranged from suspicion to outright fear. Guards followed them at a distance, trying to look casual but clearly ready to act if needed. The assembly hall was different too. Instead of the relaxed gathering of the previous day, this felt like a court-martial. The advanced civilizations sat in tight groups, their representatives talking in quick, nervous whispers. The developing species section was nearly empty. Most of the junior civilizations had apparently been asked to leave. Morrison and Carter were led to 2 chairs in the center of the hall, directly under the brightest lights. Around them, in a circle, sat the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Morrison had never felt so small and so exposed. Coordinator Prime stood, but this time its silver-gold skin looked more like metal armor than flowing silk. "Captain Morrison, Dr. Carter, thank you for responding to our summons." "We were told attendance was mandatory," Morrison replied. "Indeed." Coordinator Prime gestured to Dr. Kethmore, who rose from his section. "Dr. Kethmore has some questions about your vessel's technology. We hope you will answer them honestly." Kethmore's 4 arms moved as he activated a holographic display above the center of the hall. Images of the Liberty appeared, rotating slowly. "Captain Morrison, please describe your ship's hull composition." Morrison looked up at the display, seeing his ship from angles he had never seen before. "Standard carbon steel alloy, manufactured by Earth Defense Industries using materials mined from asteroids in our solar system." Murmurs ran through the assembled aliens. Kethmore's display shifted, showing molecular diagrams. "This steel should not be able to withstand the gravitational forces of faster-than-light travel. How do you explain these quantum-locked molecular structures?" Morrison stared at the diagrams. They looked like nothing he had ever seen before. I don't know what those are. We just used the strongest steel we could make. Commander Veltar rose, its crystal body flashing with agitated colors. Captain Morrison, your ship's engine produces fusion energy, correct? Yes. Deuterium-tritium fusion. Same reaction that powers our sun. Then explain these zero-point energy signatures we detected, Veltar demanded, bringing up new displays that showed swirling patterns of force that made Morrison's eyes water. I don't know what you're talking about, Morrison said honestly. Our engines burn fusion fuel and create thrust. That's all. Ambassador Thes's tank floated forward. Dr. Carter, please explain the dimensional folding technology in your ship's internal structure. Carter looked as confused as Morrison felt. Dimensional folding? We don't have anything like that. Our ship is exactly as big inside as it is outside. Unit 9947's mechanical head turned toward them with a whir. Scans indicate your ship's interior volume is 23.7% larger than its exterior dimensions. This requires space-time manipulation beyond current galactic technology. That's impossible, Carter protested. You must have made a mistake. The silence that followed was heavy with tension. Morrison could feel the weight of thousands of alien eyes on him, and none of them looked friendly. Dr. Kethmore brought up another display, this one showing what looked like a small black sphere, surrounded by swirling energy. Captain Morrison, what is this device in your ship's core? Morrison squinted at the image. That's our gravitational stabilizer. It keeps us from getting thrown around when we change direction quickly. This reads, as a stable microsingularity, Kethmore said, his voice tight with disbelief. A controlled black hole. How did your species develop this technology? It's not a black hole, Morrison said, starting to feel frustrated. It's just a gravity generator. Dr. Peterson at MIT designed it based on his research into gravitational field theory. More murmurs, louder this time. Morrison caught fragments of alien languages through the translation devices. Impossible. Lying. Dangerous. Must be stopped. Coordinator Prime raised a hand for silence. Captain Morrison, these readings suggest your species possesses technology far beyond what you described yesterday. Are you hiding your true capabilities? Morrison stood up, his frustration boiling over. No, we are not hiding anything. Everything I have told you is the truth. Our ship was built by human engineers using human science with materials from our own solar system. We have never encountered another intelligent species before meeting you. Then how do you explain these impossible readings? Demanded Commander Veltar. I can't explain them because I don't understand them, Morrison shot back. You're showing me diagrams and energy patterns that look like nothing I've ever seen. Maybe your scanners are wrong. Maybe you don't understand our technology as well as you think you do. The hall erupted in angry voices. Several aliens rose from their seats, their forms pulsing or flashing with agitation. Morrison heard the word. Primitive, repeated several times, but now it sounded more like an accusation than an insult. Coordinator Prime called for order. Dr. Carter, perhaps you can provide a more technical explanation. Carter stood beside Morrison. I designed many of the Liberty systems myself. Our hull plating uses a carbon iron matrix developed by Detroit Steel Works. The molecular bonding process was discovered by accident when a technician made an error in the forging temperature. We found it made the steel much stronger, so we used it. Impossible, breathed Commander Veltar. Quantum-locked molecular structures cannot be created by accident. Our reactor is based on research from MIT's fusion laboratory, Carter continued. The containment field uses magnetic bottle technology that we've been working on for decades. The navigation system was designed by NASA engineers who wanted to create more accurate positioning for deep space missions. "Stop," Dr. Kethmore interrupted, his forearms waving frantically. "Stop describing your technology." "Why?" Carter asked. "Because every system you describe should be impossible to build with your level of science. You are telling us you have accidentally created technologies that our civilizations have been trying to develop for millions of years." Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. "What are you saying?" Unit 9947's mechanical voice cut through the tension. "We are saying, Captain Morrison, that your species has somehow achieved the impossible, and that makes you the most dangerous beings in the galaxy." The hall fell silent. Morrison looked around at the assembled aliens and realized that their expressions had changed again. They were no longer looking at humans as primitive children. They were looking at them as a threat that might destroy everything they had built. "We just want to be friends," Morrison said quietly. "We came here in peace." "We know," Coordinator Prime replied. "That may be the most terrifying thing of all." The emergency council session had been going for 6 hours, and Morrison's head was pounding. Around him, the greatest minds in the galaxy argued in languages that sounded like music, machinery, and natural disasters. Through it all, the translation devices worked overtime, filling the air with overlapping voices. "The humans must be lying," Commander Veltar insisted for the 100th time. "No species develops impossible technology by accident. The brain scans confirm they believe their own words," Dr. Kethmore replied wearily. "They are not lying." "Then they are too dangerous to be allowed to continue," Unit 9947 stated. "The collective recommends immediate containment of the human species." Morrison felt Carter tense beside him. Containment sounded very much like a polite word for imprisonment or worse. Ambassador Theis's form swirled with agitated energy. "Perhaps we should examine their homeworld. If they have built one ship with impossible technology, what else might they have created?" "That will not be necessary," Morrison said, his voice cutting through the alien chatter. The hall fell silent, and thousands of eyes turned to him. "I can tell you exactly what we have built." Coordinator Prime leaned forward. "Captain Morrison, we strongly advise you to consider your words carefully." Morrison stood up, ignoring Carter's warning hand on his arm. He was tired of being treated like a threat or a liar. "Earth currently has 12 ships of the Liberty class in various stages of construction. 7 are completed and operational. The UES Constitution finished a round trip to the Andromeda Galaxy last month." The silence that followed was so complete, Morrison could hear his own heartbeat. Then the hall exploded into chaos. "Andromeda?" Veltar's crystal form flashed through every color of the spectrum. "That is 2.5 million light-years away. The round trip takes about 6 weeks with our current drive systems," Morrison continued, raising his voice over the noise. "We are also working on a colony ship design that should be able to carry 50,000 people to establish permanent settlements." "Stop!" Dr. Kethmore pleaded. "Please stop talking." But Morrison was beyond caring about alien sensibilities. "You want to know about impossible technology? Our deep space scanners have mapped every galaxy within 50 million light-years. Our quantum computers are working on calculations that should allow us to create artificial universes. And yes, we still call it all primitive because we know how much more there is to learn." The chaos in the hall reached a new level. Several aliens were on their feet, shouting in languages the translation devices could not handle. Security forces moved closer to the human delegation, but they looked more frightened than threatening. Coordinator Prime called for order, its voice amplified until it drowned out everything else. "Silence, all of you! Silence!" The hall gradually quieted, but the tension remained thick enough to cut. Coordinator Prime turned to Morrison with an expression that might have been respect or terror. "Captain Morrison, you speak of traveling to other galaxies as if it were a routine journey. How is this possible with fusion technology?" Carter stood up beside Morrison. "May I explain?" Coordinator Prime nodded. "The problem," Carter began, "is that you are all thinking about this wrong. You see our technology as primitive because it uses basic materials and simple energy sources. But that is exactly what makes it work." Dr. Kethmore's forearms gestured frantically. "Please elaborate." "Every advanced civilization in this room has followed the same path," Carter continued. "When you reached the limits of what basic matter could do, you moved on to exotic materials and complex energy sources. You learned that certain things were impossible, so you found ways around those limitations." "Of course," Ambassador Thiss said. "That is how science progresses." "But we never learned those limitations," Carter replied. "When our scientists hit a wall, they did not go around it. They kept hitting it until it broke." She gestured to Morrison, who pulled out a small device from his pocket. "This is a standard human multi-tool. It contains computing power that your scans probably read as impossible. But we made it by taking silicon chips and arranging the atoms in patterns that should not work according to galactic science." Unit 9947's head tilted with mechanical precision. "You manipulate matter at the atomic level?" "Every human technology does," Morrison said. "We never learned that it was supposed to be impossible." Dr. Kethmore brought up his holographic displays again. "Show them the comparison," he said quietly. The display split into two parts. On one side was the technological development path of every known galactic civilization. It showed a steady progression from basic materials to exotic matter to energy, manipulation to dimensional control. On the other side was humanity's path, which looked completely different. Humans have been working with the same basic elements for their entire technological history, Kethmore explained. But look at what they have achieved with those elements. The human side of the display showed developments that should have been impossible. Steel stronger than exotic alloys. Computers more powerful than quantum processors. Energy sources more efficient than zero-point extractors. All made from common materials that could be found on any planet. "This should not work," Commander Veltar whispered. "It works because we never learned it should not work," Carter said simply. "When Dr. Peterson was developing our gravity generator, 17 different alien physics textbooks told him it was impossible. But he did not read alien physics textbooks. He just kept experimenting until he found a way." Morrison pulled up his own display on his wrist communicator. "The UES Constitution's journey to Andromeda took 6 weeks because we built engines that fold space by convincing it that distant places are actually close together. We did not discover new physics. We just convinced normal physics to do things it did not know it could do." The hall was completely silent now. Morrison could see alien faces trying to process what they were hearing. These advanced civilizations had spent millions of years developing technology by following logical progressions and accepting natural limitations. Humanity had achieved the same results by simply refusing to accept that anything was impossible. "There is more," Morrison said, and every alien in the room flinched. The Liberty is not our most advanced ship. It is our simplest. We built it. First because we wanted to test our theories on something small before we started building the really interesting stuff. What could be more advanced than controlled singularities and dimensional folding? Ambassador Thess asked in a voice barely above a whisper. Morrison smiled, and for the first time since arriving at Kepler Station, he felt proud instead of defensive. We have a ship called the UES Possibility. It is still experimental, but the early tests are promising. It can travel through time. The silence stretched on for long minutes. Finally, Dr. Kethmore spoke. His ancient voice filled with something that might have been awe or terror. You have created time travel technology using steel and fusion reactors. Actually, we used aluminum for that one, Carter said. It turns out that if you spin aluminum fast enough in the right magnetic field, it starts to affect the flow of time around it. We discovered it by accident when a lab technician made an error in the centrifuge settings. Unit 9947's mechanical voice was flat as always, but there was something different in its tone. By accident? Most of our best discoveries happen by accident, Morrison admitted. We call it the human way. Try everything. Assume nothing is impossible. And see what happens. Coordinator Prime stood slowly, its silver-gold skin now looking more like liquid starlight. Captain Morrison, Dr. Carter, I believe I speak for the entire Galactic Council when I say that humanity's application for membership has been approved. Thank you, Morrison said. Do not thank us yet, Coordinator Prime replied. We are not offering you membership as a gift. We are offering it as a desperate attempt to convince you not to destroy us all by accident. Morrison looked confused. Destroy you? We just want to be friends. We know, Dr. Kethmore said sadly. That is what makes you so terrifying. In trying to be helpful, you might accidentally invent something that unmakes the universe. That is impossible, Carter protested. Dr. Carter, Ambassador Thess said, its form swirling with nervous energy. Please never say that word again. If there is one thing we have learned today, it is that nothing is impossible for humans. As the session ended and the aliens began to file out of the hall, Morrison heard whispers that would echo through galactic civilization for generations to come. They convinced physics to break its own rules. They built impossible technology, because no one told them it was impossible. What will they think of next? I do not want to know. Morrison and Carter walked back to the Liberty through corridors that now felt completely different. The aliens they passed no longer looked at them with amusement or contempt. They looked at them with the kind of careful respect usually reserved for dangerous explosives. Well, Carter said as they reached their ship. That went better than expected. Morrison laughed, feeling lighter than he had in days. Lisa, I think we just changed the galaxy forever. I hope we changed it for the better. Morrison looked out at the alien ships surrounding the station, their impossible technologies, glittering in the starlight. I guess we will find out. Dr. Kethmore had been studying alien technology for longer than most civilizations had existed. His people, the Archeans, were among the oldest in the galaxy, and he had spent the last 1,000,000 years cataloging every form of technology he encountered. Nothing surprised him anymore. Until tonight. He stood in his laboratory deep inside Kepler Station, staring at readouts that made no sense. Around him, screens showed the scanning results from the human ship, and every single reading contradicted. Every other reading. His forearms moved independently as he worked different controls, trying to find some explanation for what he was seeing. The door to his lab slid open, and Commander Veltar entered. The Zephyrian's crystal body was pulsing with agitated colors, shifting from blue to red to purple. "Kethmore," Veltar said, its voice tight with worry, "tell me your scanners are broken." "I wish I could," Kethmore replied without looking up. "But I have run diagnostics 17 times. Everything is working perfectly." Ambassador Theiss floated in next, its gas form swirling with nervous energy. "This is impossible. Our readings must be wrong." Unit 9947 of the Helix Collective rolled in on its mechanical legs, its metal face showing the closest thing to confusion that a robot could display. "The Collective has analyzed the data 437 times. The results remain consistent and impossible." Kethmore gestured to the main screen. "Look at this. The hull of their ship reads as simple iron and carbon. Basic steel, nothing more. But watch what happens when we scan deeper." The screen shifted, showing energy, patterns that swirled and folded in ways that hurt to look at. "Those are quantum signatures," Kethmore explained. "The kind we see when space itself is being folded. But you cannot fold space with steel." Veltar's colors shifted to a deep, worried blue. "Show them the engine readings." Kethmore switched. Screens. Their fusion reactor should be producing about 10 to the 20th watts of power. That is what the basic scans show. But these deep readings... He pointed to a series of numbers that made everyone in the room step back. "These numbers say their reactor is manipulating zero-point energy. That should be impossible with fusion technology." "There is more," Unit 9947 added. "Show them the core readings." Kethmore hesitated, then brought up another screen. In the center was a small, dark sphere that seemed to bend the light around it. "This appears to be in the deepest part of their ship. Our scanners identify it as a stable microsingularity, a tiny black hole held in perfect balance." The room fell silent. Even for these advanced civilizations, controlling a black hole was theoretical technology, something that might be possible in another 1,000,000 years of development. Ambassador Theiss's form swirled faster. "They cannot have that technology. They told us they have never left their solar system. They told us they still use chemical rockets," Veltar added, its colors now a deep, angry red. "The data does not lie," Unit 9947 stated. "But the data cannot be correct." Kethmore brought up more screens. Each one showed impossible readings. The human's navigation system appeared to be using gravitational field manipulation that should require planet-sized computers. Their communication array was generating quantum entanglement patterns that the most advanced species had only dreamed of. Their life support systems were running on energy conversion methods that should not work. "There is one more thing," Kethmore said quietly. "Watch this." He showed them a scan of the ship's structure. From the outside, it looked like a simple metal tube with engines on one end. But the internal scan showed something different. The space inside the ship was bigger than the space outside the ship. "Dimensional folding," Veltar whispered. "They have folded space inside their hull to create more room. But they do not know they have done it," Unit 9947 observed. "When we asked them about their technology, they described everything as basic and primitive." Ambassador Theiss's tank came closer to the screen. "Are they lying? Are they hiding their true capabilities?" Kethmore shook his head. "I have been watching their body language, their facial expressions, their brain patterns. They are telling the truth as they understand it. They genuinely believe their technology is primitive." "Then how?" Veltar demanded. I have a theory, Kethmore said slowly, but it is so unlikely that I barely dare suggest it. Tell us, Unit 9947 commanded. Kethmore pulled up a new display showing the technological development patterns of various species throughout galactic history. Look at this. Every advanced civilization follows the same basic path. First they master their home world, then they expand to nearby systems. Then they develop faster than light travel. Then they begin working with exotic matter and energy. He highlighted the human data. But humans have not followed this path. They have been working with basic matter, iron, carbon, silicon, and pushing it far beyond what should be possible. They have achieved results that should require exotic matter, but they have done it with ordinary materials. That is impossible, Ambassador Thys stated. Exactly, Kethmore replied, which is why they have achieved the impossible. Look at their development pattern. While other species move on to more advanced materials once they reach certain limits, humans have kept working with the same basic elements, finding new ways to use them. He brought up another screen showing molecular analysis of the human ship's hull. This steel should not be able to withstand the forces of faster-than-light travel, but somehow they have arranged the molecules in patterns that make it stronger than our best exotic alloys. Unit 9947's head tilted with a mechanical whir. You are suggesting they have accidentally developed impossible technology? Not accidentally, Kethmore said. Through persistence. While we learned that certain things could not be done and moved on to different approaches, humans never learned those limitations. They kept trying until they found a way. The room fell silent again as the implications sank in. These primitive humans had somehow achieved technological breakthroughs that advanced civilizations had dismissed as impossible millions of years ago. Veltar's colors had shifted to a pale, frightened white. If they can do this with steel and fusion reactors, what could they do with real advanced materials? What concerns me more, Ambassador Thys said, its form swirling with nervous energy, is that this ship is not even their best. The captain mentioned it was their first deep space vessel. What if they have others? Unit 9947's mechanical voice was flat as always, but there was something different in its tone. The collective calculates a 97.3% probability that humanity represents a fundamental threat to the established galactic order. Kethmore looked at his readings one more time. In all his millions of years of studying technology, he had never seen anything like this. The humans had built a ship that should not work, using methods that should not be possible, and they had done it by sheer stubborn refusal to accept that it could not be done. We need to inform the Council, he said finally. But I am not sure. They will believe us. The data speaks for itself, Unit 9947 replied. Does it? Veltar asked, its colors now cycling rapidly through the spectrum. Because according to this data, those primitive humans in their crude little ship have technology that makes our greatest achievements look like children's toys. Kethmore nodded grimly. That is exactly what the data says. The question is, what do we do about it? Outside in the corridor, maintenance robots went about their normal duties, unaware that the representatives of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations were having the most important conversation in galactic history. And in Docking Bay 97, the UES Liberty sat quietly, its hull gleaming under the station lights, keeping its impossible secrets to itself.